Hello, welcome back. That's right, we're doing another Game Master preparation. Game Master preparation. It's all about learning to improvise. That's what we're going to do. What you see before you is a whole lot of the tools that I use, but I haven't brought everything along with me. And obviously, your brain is a big factor in actually improvising. So I thought I would bring you a cheat sheet for actually improvising, which isn't really improvising, but it kind of appears like you are improvising if you do it right. Anyway, I will show and explain that after my presentation, which is slightly different to what I've done before in the past. I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll and grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable, and I'll do my presentation, which is a slideshow. And then we will go into actually sort of delving into something I haven't actually talked about before, which is not surprising. Not surprising. It's always possible I'll have something different in you. Anyway, let's get started, shall we? Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about role-playing games. Yes, that's right, role-playing games. This is not anything to do with Deadpool, but Deadpool will be helping me. I have a sense of humour, I trust me. Game Master preparation, that's what the topic is. This is lesson 6, learning to improvise. And we're going to learn to improvise absolutely everything under the sun. Everything that you can possibly have to build or come up with in your adventure, in the games that you run, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons, you can improvise the whole lot. So, how do we go about doing that? Well, let's go through the overview for today. The overview is improvising methods, and I'm going to attach to that alternative improvising methods. I have updated my list. We have Rory story cubes, we have plot twist cards, we have random charts, we have plot points, we have no game preparation, and frankly, we have a whole lot of other stuff that's not actually listed here. There isn't space, there simply isn't. What to improvise, we'll talk about that. We can improvise anything. And then some miscellaneous recommendations around that. So everything that I do on this channel, I like to explain the different methods and how they work for role-playing and improvising your role-playing game. I like to demonstrate that process as much as possible, the different methods. We probably won't be demonstrating all the different methods today. I've done that so many times before. This is the 10th time I think I've run this program. We're going to be doing something I haven't shown you today, which is super simple, very easy to do, and allows some practice. So, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions, stuff like that. I always like the idea of making it a live stream. Anyway, let's go into the first topic, which is improvising methods. Now, our improvising methods are made up of the following. Our standard improvising methods that you're probably aware of, or at least heard of to a certain degree, are things like Rory's story cubes and plot twist cards, or random charts or random generators. And then we have plot points, which is just a different extension of the plot twist card. And then, of course, you could just do no preparation. But we do actually have a bunch of other things as well, some alternatives. And I wanted to talk about those alternatives kind of first before I go into the others that I've just talked about or mentioned. I'm going to go into them in more detail. But first, let's go into the alternative methods that allow you to improvise. Now, you might be aware of a term called yes and or yes but. There's also no but. So let's start off with yes and. So what is yes and? This is when you take the player character's actions or their idea and you add something additional to the situation. You don't remove anything that the player presents, you simply add to that. Whereas yes but is when you take the player's action or idea and adjust it slightly or change something to make it sure it relates to the situation. Okay, so yes, this can happen, whatever it is that you want to have happen. Maybe you want to jump onto a chandelier, but the chandelier in this case is going to probably start to come out of the ceiling. It's not going to be able to support your weight. So you add something additional to it. Then we have no but, which a lot of people probably don't like the idea of using. The community seems to be very resistant to the idea that we should stop players from doing stuff, but there are times when it needs to happen. So no but, this is when you don't accept what the player's character action or idea is, but you take a very small element of what they're trying to do and you include it in some way and relate it to the situation. Now, you could say that no but is very similar to yes but, and they are. And conceptually, they're almost identical. The only difference is the level of information you take from the player character. Then we have blank six-sided dice, or just blank dice. I think large blank six-sided dice are the best way, using a Sharpie pen, and you can write your ideas on here. You can make up a very small random generator from your dice, whether that's for creating the weather, random encounters, wandering monsters, the outlook or demeanor of NPCs that they encounter. It could be any sort of thing. You're basically making a six-table generator, but you're doing it on dice. Then we have NPC or non-player character face cards. They have an image on them. You have an image, gives you an idea of kind of what the character's like, and you write on the back of that card, or maybe a post-it note, some of the aspects in terms of the character's name, their demeanor, using the image as the brainstorming aspect of it. Like, that's what gives you the information you need. Because as you know, an image is as good as 1,000 words, apparently. Now, you don't need 1,000 words. All you need is enough to get you by. So face cards are another tool that allow you to actually do this sort of thing. Then we have the single sheet of paper, a piece of blank paper, and you do word brainstorming. So every time the players come up with something, you write down a word or a couple of words that represent that, and you associate and link them together to help you dissect and figure out where you're going with the adventure if you have to go off the rails or you have to go outside of the sandbox that you have created. Okay, and you actually having to improvise at this point. So that sheet of paper is very useful to you. It could be a notebook, doesn't matter. There's also the 5-minute map where you say, okay, it's time to take a toilet break, or we're going to take a quick break, go get yourself a drink, something to eat, something like that. And you sit down and you draw sort of 5 or 6 location map. You know, it might have 5 or 6 rooms, it might have 5 or 6 locations, and you draw them, you link them together, and it becomes your new adventure. And then you label it, and you do that in about 5 minutes. It can be done. Trust me, it can be done. And then the new thing is artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence for publishing is considered extremely bad, and it's certainly deemed as being extremely bad. But for you as a game master or dungeon master who is running their own game, this is a brilliant tool. And I totally understand people want to use more of it. So what do? You go to ChatGPT, you type in a prompt, it gives you some information. You go to Midjourney or some other software package that can draw an image of the thing that you want, so you don't have to go looking for it. These sorts of things are really very, very, very fast, and they can be used on the spot as long as you've got internet connection and you've got a laptop or a computer in front of you. So these are the new tools of the age that we're going to be dealing with. Okay, all right, now that I've just briefly talked about some of the alternatives, let's go and talk about some of the ones that I normally discuss, because these are the ones that I have the most experience with and probably feel most comfortable covering again. And that is Rory's story cubes. Whether you get Rory's story cubes or you get somebody's knockoff story cubes, I don't really care. But Rory's story cubes, you roll a few of these and you use them to inspire a story idea very quickly. So I first saw the story cubes being used by Sly Flourish or Mike Shea to make non-player characters. And he would roll between 3 or 4 of these to determine some of the aspects or personality traits of the NPC. Very, very quickly, on the fly, without having to do all of that prep beforehand. You just do it in game. There are actually, they're 6-sided dice, these cubes, of course, and they're covered with different images, so they offer different ideas. And the great thing is, because you have so many dice, okay, what you find is every single dice has a different image. So that's 9 dice, 6 sides, multiply that 6 by 9, you get a lot of different images, because there's a different image on every single dice, okay, on every single side as well. Try playing the Rory Story Cube game with your family or friends. Look, if you're going to use Rory Story Cubes in your games as your role-playing session, as part of that, as a tool, you need to practice. So I would suggest rolling 9 of these Rory Story Cubes and then starting with Once Upon a Time, play the game, and then have each person take turns linking one of the cubes into the story, and then you finish finish with the end. Okay, this method does require some practice before applying it to a game session. And then Rory Story Cubes, you can get a phone app. You do not have to go and buy the actual physical dice if they're going to be too expensive for you, or it's just another thing you have to lug around, and you need to be very portable. Then simply just get it downloaded onto your phone app. Okay. You can practice with your family playing the Story Cubes to improve your skills, and practice is always an important aspect of improvising. I would say the original Rory Story Cube box set is the best in my opinion. You can get different ones, you don't have to get that one, but that would be the one I would go after. So yes, and you can create absolutely everything, and I'll talk more about what sort of things you can create with Rory Story Cubes in a second, because you can just about cover everything under the sun. Okay, so that's the Rory Story Cubes. Next, I've talked about these before, you may or may not be aware of them, and they're called plot twist cards. They are put out by Paizo's Game Mastery, and they're a very good tool. One of the things about them, obviously, is that they do have a mechanical aspect. So the plot twist cards offer a mechanical benefit to the Pathfinder game, but you don't want to use it for the Pathfinder game. But it also includes a narrative suggestion or suggestions. So you can use plot twist cards in pretty much any game. You simply give these out to your players randomly, and they can change the plot, the game, the actual adventure's plot, some events that might take place, locations, treasure, monsters they might come across, all that sort of stuff. Or you can award them as a reward. You could use them as a reward system. They don't have to be just given out randomly. This is actually not a particularly easy thing to do in a campaign and adventure. It can come apart on you if the players put an input that you're just not able to deal with. So you do need to be ready to say no. So game masters don't have to accept what the player uses in terms of the suggestion on the plot twist card. They usually have a theme, a big word that suggests the theme, and about 4 different suggestions that you can pick from. So if you decide you don't want to take on board whatever their suggestion is from the card that they have, because that sort of restricts them, the card actually locks them into a certain type of action, certain type of adjustment to your adventure. If you don't like that, then take the unused card from the player and give them another card, as randomly select another card that they can use later on. Or they could save it if they decide they would prefer to just keep the card, they could just keep the card. But you do need to remember that you do not have to accept absolutely everything that they give you when you use these cards. It's not like that at all. They are there simply as a way of making the adventure more interesting. I will warn you now that players, when they get cards like this, they'll try to play Magic the Gathering and use them as trump cards. You need to explain to them that these cards are not used or intended to be used as a way of getting out of trouble. They are a way of you creating trouble. If you understand that as a player, once you teach them, and it took me a while to teach my players, once you communicate to them and teach them that using a plot twist card, your job with a plot twist card is to make the adventure more interesting, not to solve problems with them. In fact, you're supposed to create problems. And if you do that, you're using the cards right. And we'll keep giving you more cards. Okay, so that's plot twist cards. Let's get into random charts. Great things, random charts and tables. They've been around for a long time. Random charts can be used to generate absolutely everything for a game master. You just need to have the right table or chart. You can find online random tables and charts pretty much anywhere. Some websites that I can suggest to you is Donjon, the website where you can create a whole dungeon location in just a few seconds. And it for multiple different rule systems. That's Donjon. You're probably already aware of it. Most of you probably are if you've been playing for a while. There's also one of my mates has got a website called Chartopia, and that website has tables and random generators, and you can actually make your own random charts and tables there and generators. So you can actually pre-program it so it does what you want it to do. And then, of course, you have to access the internet to use Chartopia, but it's still a very cool tool. And there's a lot of different charts and tables there now. Then you have D&D Speak. That website specializes in tables of 100 different things. So really, really good if you need a lot of different ideas and you need a wide range of tables. Then if you have a look in books, I would say some of the best books out there in terms of this sort of stuff is Things like the Pathfinder, the original 5e Pathfinder, not the original 5e, the original Pathfinder First Ed Edition Game Mastery Guide. Not the Second Ed Edition one, that's not very good. But the first one, okay, the very First Ed Edition one, that's excellent book, has lots of tables. You have the Game Master's book, the Game Master's Book of Random Encounters, which you probably have seen I've done a review on. And then there's the Game Master's Book of Non-Player characters, and there's a lot more book series. There's a lot more the Game Master books of all sorts of different things that you can use. They have puzzles, they have traps, they have a variety of different things available to you. And then there is the Dungeon Master Guide for 5e, and any kind of Game Master book or Dungeon Master Guide will generally have a bunch of tables in them that you can use to populate or generate stuff on the fly. Now, the important thing when you're using random tables, whether you use them electronically in a digital form or whether you use them physically, is you must find a way of organizing those tables so you can access them quickly. If you can't access your tables quickly, then they're no good to you as an improvising tool. You'll find that they will do nothing for you. They just wind up being a great maybe preparation tool, but not a improvising tool. That's the difference. You need to make sure they're well organized and you can access them quickly when you need to get hold of them. Okay, plot points. I've talked about plot points before. They're not new to 5e, even though they do appear, plot points do appear in the Dungeon Master Guide for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. It is on page 269 to 270. So this is basically an extension, a much wider tool than something like the plot twist cards. So now the players are given the ability to affect the campaign. They get a point that they can use at any time. They can affect the campaign, the adventure, the plot, the NPCs, the monsters during the game, absolutely anything. There is no restriction. This is much harder for you to actually deal with than I would say, the plot twist cards. Plot twist cards narrow things down for the players. So it actually means you don't have to deal with every single wild idea they come up with. But it does also, plot twist cards suffers from the same issues as plot twist cards. They will try to use them as a trump card, and you need to explain to them the idea of the plot twist, the plot point. When you use a plot point, the idea is to make the adventure more interesting and create more challenge, not to solve problems. Because if you're using them to solve problems, you're using them wrong. And if they're going to use them wrong, then you'll stop using them. Now, why do we use something like plot twist cards and plot points? Because it forces us as a game master or dungeon master to improvise. They're there specifically to force you into situations to deal with things you weren't expecting. Now, players will always do things that you don't expect, but this just increases the number of times it will actually occur. You need to increase the number of times you have to deal with difficult situations to get better at improvising. The more you have to improvise, the more practice you get, the better you get at it. And the only way to achieve that is to force the issue sometimes. Okay, that's our plot points. Next, if you are a very brave individual or you are stripped of time, this is probably the method for you. No game preparation. Just don't do any game preparation and just show up and run the game. Now that sounds terrifying, doesn't it? So doing no game or adventure preparation forces the game master to improvise the role-playing game, for sure. If they have nothing to refer to, they have to make it up on the spot. Now, I don't recommend this method to game masters or dungeon masters who hate feeling stressed or they panic. If you are very new to the whole idea of being a game master or dungeon master, this might actually create more stress than you need to actually deal with. So unless you're brave and you just do not give a shit about what happens at your table and you will just go with the flow, I wouldn't say this is necessarily a good idea. Now, this method is often practiced by a game master or dungeon master as a result of having no time to actually plan for the game session, but they don't want to not run the game because they know that their players will feel, upset that they missed out. But unfortunately, when you do something like this, it can yield very cruel player feedback, particularly from players who have never been a game master or dungeon master and are not allowing you the opportunity to learn and practice improvising. And that's a thing to take into consideration. If you have players who generally aren't your friends, who are not very patient, not very understanding, they're probably not the right person to be doing this technique with. Uh, Frankly, I would say, in many respects, when you have players like that, the chances are the lifespan in your group is very, very short. I think you'll find that unless those players actually change their attitude, they won't stay with you. Okay, they'll move on, or you'll have to move them on. I'm not even going to go into all of that sort of stuff. But yes, you do need to be aware that when it comes to learning to improvise, you need to have players who are going to allow you to do that. Okay, so that's no game preparation. I've done all of these methods, people. I've done all of them. I know what it's like. Okay, so what can you improvise? What do you improvise? Well, you can improvise absolutely everything. And my example has often been around Rory's story cubes, but any of the methods that I just talked about can do this, okay? You can use a title of a book found on a bookcase or on a desk is quite a common thing to have to improvise because we don't always create the title of a book for our bookcase. You know, when they say, there's books on a bookcase, what do I find? And yeah, I didn't actually make any titles up. So this is something you can improvise. And Rory's story cubes are great for this, but so are other techniques. The contents of the book, when they try to read it, because there's always a player who says, okay, oh, right, you've got the title of the book, but now I want to read the book. What's actually in the book? Well, Rory's story cubes again, or you improvise with a random chart or table. The creation of a non-player character, things like personality traits, bonds, ideals, flaws, motivations, secrets, all that sort of stuff. That can all be improvised. You can actually create a quick adventure hook or a side quest just by improvising using various tools that I've just discussed. You can create random encounters, not just combat encounters, but a random encounter. You have to understand that a random encounter is not just about combat. It could be anything. It could be the contents of a letter from an NPC that presents a clue to complete the adventure's goal. It might be runes found in an ancient castle, temple, or a tomb that unlocks some sort of magical secret. It might be a monster. It might be travelling locations for your party, things that they see as they journey to a far-off place. It might be official documents. It might be a journal entry. It could be loot items. It might be a trinket that isn't magical, but they pick up. It's just a bit unusual. It might even be a magic item. You can do just about anything. Okay. Every time I run this program, I like to give out some miscellaneous recommendations. And so that's what I'm going to do today. I don't recommend, okay, that you get too caught up in the quality of your improvising. It is actually completely unimportant. Don't judge your own improvising strictly, okay, as it's not always clear what players will enjoy and what they don't enjoy. So if you're using your player's reaction as the only measure for your improvising skill, you've kind of lost the plot there. You need to understand that that's not the only metric that you need to consider. Okay, that's only one of some things to consider. I would say to you, and it almost always takes this, always winds up being this way, and that is that player feedback from a game master. So when you have a player who's also been a game master or a dungeon master, their feedback is probably more useful to you because it will be it will be less negative, and it'll be more restrained, and it will be more understanding of your situation than a player playing a character who's never been a game master or a dungeon master and has frankly no idea what they're talking about, because they've never done it. So you need to be very careful about those players and their feedback. Next, improvising takes time. You cannot just walk into a game session and be able to do it and be brilliant at it. Maybe there are people out there. I'm sure we could find one person or two people who's an outlier. But just because there might be somebody out there who can just do it doesn't mean that everybody should be able to do it that way. There's always somebody who finds one circumstance or a couple of very minor circumstances that are rare that say, well, look, these people were able to do it, but why can't everybody else? Again, I would say you forget that. That's nonsense. It's from idiots. Okay, they're not taking into consideration the general or wider conglomeration of people. It takes practice to get better at improvising any kind of game session. Okay, so expect not to be very good. You need to have practice. The better you get at it means you did more practice to get there. Now, even if the players don't like a game master improvising game, doesn't mean that the players' feedback has a lot of weight, as I said. One of the things you'll discover is that as a game master, you improvise, but also players improvise with their character. And what they do with their character is not that great either. Some people are good at it, some people aren't. So that's another thing to take into consideration. You actually need to allow both players and game master need to allow each other an opportunity to do things that aren't that good in a game as they improvise and they learn the ropes. They will get better at it, both of you. But if you're not patient and understanding about that process, you're probably not going to get very far. Anyway, players don't necessarily understand how hard it is to improvise a role-playing game as a game master, particularly if they've never done it. That's all I have to say. I've said the same thing in a different way multiple times. I'm going to shut up now. Hopefully I've made my point. Anyway, I hope this was useful to you, and if it was, fantastic. I want to thank my patrons who support me on Patreon so I can keep running this program, and I keep revising this program. This program actually does change over time. I do say things that are different. I do add things in. So thank you very much. All the best with your improvising, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Hello, how are you, everybody? So I've been talking for about 30 minutes. For those of you who are still here, since many of you have seen this presentation many times before, I have adjusted it slightly. It's not a huge difference. So for those of you who are still here and still watching, I was going to go through and demonstrate some 5-minute maps. And then I decided actually maybe that step isn't the step that I need to actually cover. So what I've decided to do is I want to show you how to improvise, how to cheat. That doesn't mean artificial intelligence, okay? That doesn't mean we're using ChatGPT, but I'm going to show you how to cheat when it comes to improvising, because there is a way. I haven't actually talked about this before. I haven't actually mentioned it in this presentation. Instead, I'm going to talk about it and I'm going to show you. And then you'll decide whether you think this is a technique that you could use. Now, I'm going to just move a few things out of the way. I'm going to have a look at the chat before I move on. So, do you draw quick adventure maps when the players go something? Do something? Should be do something you didn't prepare for in an adventure? Yes, 80%. No, 0%. Sometimes 20%. Okay, so we've got a division of five votes. So that would make sense. Okay. So what do you got here? Fred Hubert is a patron. Thank you for being here. I ran a, what's this? No, I can't read it now. It's just gone up and I can't read it. Well, I was going to do that, but I've noticed that I'm actually going to do something else today. Okay, I'm going to do something else. I thought what I would do is I would show you how to cheat. Cheating is really, really easy. Now, I don't mean cheating with dice rolls. I mean cheating in terms of preparing material for your adventure when they decide to do something. Okay, there's a way to do that, and so I thought I would at least cover that today. I have books of maps to pull out if I need one. So what Fred Huber is actually talking about is exactly kind of what I was heading towards. Not exactly, because a book of maps is not enough. What you need is the other stuff that goes with it, right? So I'm going to show you what I mean in a second. Some 10 insulting cards, several PDF tables. Draw a card, yeah. Randomly. Hello, Derp. Now, Derp is also a patron. Hello, Pale Rider. How are you doing? Can we prompt you to provide to prove it is improvised and not prepared? Well, we'll see. Let me at least show you how to cheat first. Roll behind the screen. Yeah, so that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. It's all good. So let me move some of this stuff out of the way. So what I've got in front of me right now are a variety of tools, right? So I've got I've got these face cards that I was talking about. They're faces of NPCs that you could use, and they're great. But you still have to. What happens if you freeze? What happens if you have to improvise and you just get stuck and you don't know what to do? So I also use these tarot cards are great because if you have a fortune teller, you can use these to sort of do part of the work for you. Plot twist cards that I talked about, but we're not going to use those today. I'm going to put them aside. Okay, let's assume that you freeze and you just don't know what to do. So we're getting rid of the dice. I'm not going to do that today. We've done so many of that so far, so we'll get rid of it. I'm going to get rid of the story cubes. So I've got a couple of different packs of these things, the little ones, the big ones. So we're going to pull that away. We're not going to worry about the pre-made puzzles in here. We're going to put that out of the way. I'm going to put that down. I'm going to say that this is a great book, but we're not going to use this either, although we could. Now, the reason why I'm not going to use this book is because there's still a little bit of work required on your part. And as I said, how do I help you cheat and make it as easy as possible? And then this other book, which I've done a review on, again, you would have to do some work. It's not going to do everything you need. It's only going to give you NPCs. So we're going to put all of that out of the way because that won't do what you need it to do. Instead, I'm going to show you what I do when I get stuck. When, for whatever reason, I have simply had not enough time to prepare, and I know I still want to run a game, and I'm really unsure what I do next. And what I do is I very carefully purchase adventures that have a particular structure. Now, the particular structure that you want is you need it to be an adventure that's already made. This is not improvising. This is pretending to improvise. Your players will not even know the difference. What you want is you want one map and one page for your adventure. In other words, the adventure has to be so short and so basic and so simple that you can read it and be prepared in 5 to 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes means that if you don't have enough time before you run your adventure, you can probably just say, we're going to start a little bit later than normal. You spend 5 or 10 minutes. You read through the adventure that you've selected from a publisher that makes adventures like this. And I know very few people do. Okay, I understand this. You certainly won't find it from Wizards of the Coast. And you prepare. Or something happens and they decide to go off track and you're not too sure what to do. So then you have a selection of very thin, and I have a whole bunch of these things that are they're just soft-bound books, and they give you different adventures, and it's one page and a map. And I can prepare it. So I say, okay, go take a toilet break. We're going to come back in 5 minutes, and then we'll just go through this. So let's just quickly do that now, and I'll show you what I mean. Now, these are designed for different levels of play. I've kind of shown this stuff before. So this one here is not my favorite out of all of them, but it is very thin, okay? But what you'll notice about it is there's 12 adventures in here, and they cover different levels of play, and their structure is super simple. Normally what you get is you get one map and about a page worth of adventure, and then you move on to the next thing. In other words, I could read and understand what's going on within a short space of time. And if you're really smart about this, if you were to put a little label at the top, like a little flag, indicating what level the adventure is, you can drop these in. You have enough of these books, you can drop them in, and they won't even know that you didn't have time to prepare. This is the whole idea of cheating. You use such short adventures that are super simple and stripped down, and I'm sure you can find something that's even more stripped down than this, that you can run, understand, and have ready to go within 5 or 10 minutes. So that even if you start your adventure and then decide to go and do something that you weren't expecting, and you need an adventure of a certain level, you simply collect up whatever resources you have, you look for the level of the adventure that you need, and you pick the one that you think is the most appropriate that you could use. I've done this a few times. I won't admit that I've done it usually to my players, but I'm going to admit it to you, okay? There's also this one, the original one, which was prepared, not prepared to, but prepared. I think prepared is probably better, in my opinion. I found this to be very useful. Again, if you know kind of what you need, you can drop these in and have them ready to go in a very short space of time, because they're really only designed to run for 2 or 3 hours, and then you usually finish, depending on how quick your players are. So if you can find a whole bunch of adventures that are simply one map and about a page worth of information on the adventure, broken down so it's easy to read and simple, and you can actually get that into your brain within about 5 or 10 minutes, you don't even need to worry about your brain freezing. You're just going to use somebody else's resource. There's another one of these. I wouldn't say this is quite as good. This is Creature Codex, which I've kind of covered before. But again, it has reasonably short adventures. This one is a little bit longer in that what they've done here is they've got one map and you get 3 pages. So you might have to allow, depending on how fast you read, you might have to allow for 5, 10, 15 minutes, maybe 15 minutes to read and be ready to run an adventure from this book, because the adventures are a little bit longer. But each adventure has all the information that you need. It has a map, so you don't have to worry about that. And you just run whatever thing is going to be appropriate for your level. And that's what I mean by cheating. Now, you can't cheat with adventures that are really long. They have to be very, very short. Otherwise, it doesn't work. What you'll also find too with these slightly longer adventures that Kobold Press puts out, and I would say that they've actually got probably worse at making these than rather than better. It's a shame, but it's true. This is probably one of my favorites. This, I find, is probably 15 to 20 minutes. So if you can get away with them going and have a poo and a pee and then coming back, you can probably get this done in a super short space of time. There's a map, you have about 3 pages worth of adventure, and then you go on to the next adventure. And there's enough information here usually to play for 3 or 4 hours, because instead of just 5 or 6 locations, you can get up to about 12. 11 or 12 is probably your standard for this thing. Well, not all of them are like that, but certainly a good portion of them. And so, as I said, you're just going to tag each page so you know what level the adventure it is. I keep these books together because when I am stuck and I know I need to do something quickly, I need to be able to reference them and see, okay, what is it? What's my choices? What could I use given the situation and what they're trying to do? Now, it's not going to cover everything under the sun. You have to have quite a few of these to be able to pull it off. And of course, you won't want to run the same adventure over and over again. But again, if you structure your adventures this way, it makes a lot more sense to you. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to show you these books, and I have shown people these books before, where you get an adventure with a map and a few pages of information, and then we move on, is this is how you want to structure to a certain degree what you're trying to do. I think the best structure that I can think of is this book. This book has a really good structure in that what you want to do is you want to have a quick map. We talked about 5-minute maps a second ago. 5-minute map, you need something, they've come up with a location. What happens if none of these books that I have already got printed out that I've got in my library are going to help me? And I know they're not going to help me. I'm going to have to do something. I'm actually going to have to draw something up. So how do I deal with that? Well, if you look at the structure, you do not need very much. This bit here, the introduction to your adventure, probably unnecessary for what you're trying to do. The background, forget about the background. You don't have time, okay? This element here about NPCs or anything like that, you don't have time for that. What you need is just a very brief line or a couple of words to represent each location that you're going to be adventuring in. And so that's what you're going to be aiming for. One map, and you're going to use the map instead of writing down a whole lot of text, because 5 minutes is not a lot of time. You have to write it onto the actual map. You're going to write your notes onto the map. That's your 5-minute map. Okay, all right. So I've talked about that. I've shown you what I mean. That's how I would cheat. If you get stuck and you do not know what to do, cheat that way. All right. Now, Dirt was going on about can we give you an idea and can you show people how to do it? And I'm going to do one today. So I'll do one today. I'm probably only going to go for another 15 minutes or so, but we'll see how we go. I'm going to do one today. That means I'm going to have to work very quickly. I'm going to drink some water before I do this. I'm going to take my hat off because my head is getting very, very hot. And I'm going to do this. And you're going to provide me with a scenario, something I have to create. We'll do a 5-minute map right now. So, you like the Back Me Gazettas for their adventure hooks. Easy to build an adventure on these. Fair enough. Fred Huber, I'm not surprised if you have those books because if you've followed my channel for any length of time, I've recommended them many, many times. They are good resources. Okay. I also used to buy modules. Read the module once, then throw the book aside and run an adventure on the maps. Yes, absolutely. You can use an existing map and just transpose whatever you want onto that map and cut it down. One of the things I've noticed is we have one of the patrons and subscribers to this channel, Nacho Man. He's been taking his map of his location and then he's been using a couple of words or a sentence for each location within there and then going from there. Okay, so I've got to do this, and it looks to me we've been given a task. A crashed GIF ship in a jungle. All right, that's what we're going to do right now. So counting down, it is 12:45. I have 5 minutes to do this. So crashed GIF ship. Now I'm using pencil, but I want to use pen as well. Okay, so let's just go with a ship shape. Let's get something like that going. There's usually a front and a back, bow and stern sections. We don't need to necessarily worry about multiple levels. Let's just go with that for now. We need bushes and forest around it. Okay, we have some masts. And what we're going to do here is we'll put a hole in this thing, and we have essentially 3 locations, I would say. Okay, I wouldn't say that there's a lot going on here. We don't need to worry too much about the top, so let's just draw in some doors to indicate that we can go, and there's like an area in each one. So maybe this here, we'll go 1, 2 is the deck. 3, storage, sails. All right, I'm going to shift over to a darker pen because I've only got 3 minutes left now, so I have to actually draw it in so you can see what we're doing. GIF ship, some stairs leading up to the next level, and we're not worried about the what it looks like on top because there's not much going on top, so let's just deal with the captain's quarters. Okay, we've got some bushes. Let's draw this in quickly. 3 is storage, sails, rope, the top deck, 2 injured crew, we have maps, put in this, and in here we're going to mark a different location, number 4 and 5. So 4 and 5, let's say that this is safe exit. So you could go exit from here easily. I'm almost up to 2 minutes to go. All right, safe exits there. And what else do we need? We need, let's have some lizard people. And they're investigating. Okay. Injured crew, ships and storage ropes. We'll put in that. There's a door to lead into there. We need a stairwell of some kind to lead up to the top of it. But we don't need to draw that in because that's not necessary. It's just a deck. And what else do we need? We need damaged hull. Needs fixing. Okay, we've got some masts. Let's break some masts. So broken mast. Sorry if you can't see what I'm writing because I'm writing so quickly and it's getting a bit messy, I'm sure. Let me just put that in. Almost done, almost up, almost out of time. They're coming back from the toilet. They've finished getting their drink. Okay. So I've suggested a whole lot of different things here. So we've got a few things that they can deal with. So let's break this down. That's 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I come up with that. The ship is down. It's on its side. It's got a hole in it. How do I deal with it from there? There's lots of different things that can potentially go from, travel from this point. Okay, we have a captain's quarters. There's maps here. There might be other things that you might want to not mark off as being here, but I'm just putting down captain's quarters. The captain might be here. They might not be here. And we've got maps. We've got injured crew that you need to deal with. You have your resources here. You might even have things you need to repair the ship in this location. You have the damaged hull. You mark it. You have a broken mast that needs to be repaired. Normally with a broken mast in the old days, they just cut down a tree, strip off the bark, and get some tools out, strip it back so it was nice and clean, and then remount it. That's what happens. It's like you just remount a new mast from a tree. So you find the tree the right size and cut it down. And there will be tools. Okay, there'll be tools on your ship to do something like that. You have lizard folk. They live here. This is their forest or jungle. Okay, so don't worry about them quite so much unless you feel like they're going to be a threat. They might be only interested in, well, what's this thing that's landed here? But that's potentially an interaction. So there's a lot of different things you can do once you crash. And this location is only made up of, I haven't even done the bottom level of the ship, which you suppose you could have done if you wanted to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations, and an exit point that's safe, a potential threat or somebody to interact with, 1, 2, 3 different problems to deal with on the ship. And that's it. If I can do it in a live stream in 5 minutes, okay, trust me, live streams are definitely stressful, then you can probably do it yourself, and it's not in a live stream in front of your players. It's all it did was say crashed gift ship in a jungle, and that's what we get. It's not brain surgery. It's not because I'm really clever at stuff. This is really basic stuff. You just think about the sorts of things that might be part of that. Okay. Small patrol craft, 4-person crew, heavily armored. Well, I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Are you talking about a patrol craft that would be above that you deal with later? Every time when I say a 5-minute map, I mean don't get caught up in all the other stuff. Okay? Don't get caught up in all the other stuff. You can do that stuff if that helps you, but if you need something visually to help guide you so you know what you're dealing with, this map is not for the players. It is for you as the game master and the dungeon master. Okay. Hello, prepare, cook, and survive. How you doing? Beat the devil out of it, Fred. Yeah. Yep. Yes, cargo department. Look, the cargo compartment might be completely gone. If there's a hole in the bottom of the ship, it might be completely gone. There might not be anything left there. So you have to deal with the storage location where all the sails are, and hopefully some tools and various other things. Maybe a bit of a bit of tar. So if I can do this, you can do this. Anyway, I'm going to jump back over to here. And my suggestion to you is, now, one of the things that I used to do when I was starting out, and you might find this useful. Hello, Nacho Man. I've just been talking about you, Nacho Man. How are you doing? What I used to do is I would have a small notebook, and I would draw a location, and I would name it and label it down the side. You can do it like this, and I wouldn't give myself 5 minutes. I would give myself a bit of time, and I would just draw up a scenario that I thought, well, I might use this in the future, and I would take that with me. Hello, Pat Schubert. How are you doing? You like this, Pat? I'm glad you do. Awesome. So having a little notebook, and let's just grab this. Having a little notebook doesn't have to be that big. In fact, it's probably better if it has no lines or squares on it, so that you're not restricted by how large it could be or how small it might be. And all you do is you just draw a map location, you label it very basically. It is just a guide to give you an idea of what's going on, to help you through the process of improvising an adventure that you did not plan. And you just need, as I said, about 5 minutes to get it done. All good things to, yes, Nacho Man. I was actually talking about how you prepare your games, and I wanted to explain how that's kind of the structure you might do with your 5-minute map, which is you have your map and just a small list down the side or on the map indicating information. It might be as small as just a couple of words, one word, or a sentence, depending on how much time you have to put into it. Okay? So my suggestion is get yourself a notebook, and every time you come up with an idea for a short adventure, don't think in terms of events. Forget about events, forget about plot. Okay? Events, plots, your players create that. You don't have to do that. All you need to do is you just need locations with maps and notes on them. And if you do that, you can actually reuse it. You'll be surprised. You might find yourself able to reuse it. In fact, because you've done it before and written it or drawn it out before, you may in fact remember what you've done in the past and be able to do it from memory. Depends on how good you are at remembering stuff. But one of the easiest ways to learn how to improvise is to practice. You remember how I said practicing makes it easier to do stuff? So the more maps related to our location-based adventure that you actually do yourself, even if it's just a quick scrawl, will actually make it easier for you to run a game. That's a fact. I know it is, because that's what happened to me. I know it is a fact because so many other people that I know have done this and it's worked for them. So yeah, try it out. 5-minute map, a few notes on it, 5 or 6 locations, enough to get you past 2 or 3 hours. That's it. That's all. You're not doing a mega dungeon. Yes, you're doing mega dungeon stuff. I know, but I'm taking your idea and I'm compounding it down into a much smaller package. Does that make sense? Ah, dear. Has siege weaponry aimed at a 3-degree arc? I'm not sure what that's all about. Okay. All right. What do you got here, Fred Huber? I was thinking how I would do a 5-minute map of that ship. Oh, okay. I see. Now I see. Yep. So your map will be different to my map, and that's fine. As long as you got it down, right? As long as you can get it down on a piece of paper fairly quickly. All good things, I hope. Yeah, no, we've done that. I do those loose leaf notebooks. Draw a map on one sheet, notes on the other side, and put them in facing each other. So what Fred Huber is actually describing is kind of what I did with Dungeon 23, which is I had a map on one side, but that was just one room. You're not going to do one room. You're going to do a couple of locations that are connected, okay? And then you put your notes on the other side. Now, the more you do that, even if you don't get to use it right now, you might get to use it a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. There have been times I've found where I've drawn a map for something, but I haven't had the notebook with me and I've had to do something, but I remember what the structure is, because one of the biggest things I've found when it comes to creating your own maps and your own adventures is understanding architecture, archaeology, and if you've been exposed to a lot of the stuff and you've seen it, seeing it's not enough for me. I have to draw it. I have to interact with it physically in some way, and that actually makes it a lot easier. I'm a spatial person. I'm not a verbal person, even though I talk way too much. So I have to draw stuff to make it sort of stick, or I have to make it. That helps me memorize stuff. If you're a verbal person, then you might write stuff down rather than draw pictures. But I always find that a visual representation with a few words works really, really well. So, Fred Huber, I like your approach. And as I said, even though you might not necessarily have the notebook with you, the fact that you've actually done this sort of stuff in the past, you've prepared that location, there are locations that you should practice drawing. One is a tavern. If you have never drawn a tavern before, your own tavern, draw a tavern and label it, put some stuff in it, give it some information on one page. Do a tavern, do a castle, do a tomb. Tombs are usually constructed the same way. Do a pyramid, they're fairly standard, okay? Do a monster lair, like a cave location, 5 or 6 locations connected, and draw something like that. Make sure you do like a small town, literally a small town. It only has 5 shops or 6 shops, very small town, or a village. Do something like what's another good example? Do a tower, exploring towers. Do a multi-level tower. Okay, they're going to be very small rooms. It's probably going to have a spiral staircase, but draw that and then label it and put the things that you think you would find in there. Draw something like that. Do a house, just a normal house, maybe a farmer's house, a normal house, a normal cottage. It's not got a lot of rooms. It's very basic. You could do a manor if you wanted to, but manors are a little bit more complicated. They've got a lot more rooms, a lot more levels. But a house is definitely something you should consider, just drawing that and labeling it up. Anything that you would normally use in some way is going to be useful to you. I would suggest things like the Trojan horse. So drawing a Trojan horse and drawing the different compartments in it is a good one to do. Doing a what's the word for it? Doing a chapel or a temple or a church. Draw one of those. They usually only have 3 or 4 locations to them in reality. So you don't need to do very much to get what you need. Just do that. Draw that up first. Practice those. Have them in a book. Once you've drawn them once, it's pretty easy to do it again. Yep. Then you don't have to do it in the moment like I just did, but it does certainly make it easier. Drop the PCs into an escape room with no explanation and then have to discover everything. Yes, the problem with an escape room is it's one room. There's not much to draw up. So now you're just labeling the different aspects in the room. You can do that. If you're dealing with just a single room, draw the room and then draw the things in the room and then label them what they are. If you push on the statue, it activates a trap. If you find the right book in the bookshelf, it will activate the secret door and they can escape. Or they need to manipulate a couple of statues with gems, and that it's a puzzle that they need to solve. You can do that in just a room. So yes, you could certainly make it more micro rather than macro. Nacho, man. I'm lucky because some kind of person has given me access to all of the D&D Beyond. So most of my prep is copy and paste, then edit it down to one page. That's true, but you can all do this yourselves. Dyson Logo has so many free maps that you can access. You don't have to pay for them, and you just need to label it. Donjon is a really good example of this. You literally can just type in a few prompts and it will spit out a map. What I find with their maps is they're not very interesting, and sometimes the information in them is a bit much. But The basic gist can work quite well sometimes. I have a map I drew 35 years ago and haven't used yet, but I still have it. Exactly, Fred. Yep. It just never fit the adventures and how the players run their PCs. Absolutely, I agree. And this has happened to me. I draw a lot of maps, they never get used, but if I ever come across that situation, I probably know how to draw that map up again. Twilight Zone has an episode that has a clown, ballerina, soldier, and I forgot who else. Eventually turns out that they are discarded toys in a waste bin. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, I'm going to finish up there today, and then we'll come back to this some other time. I'm probably going to look at the idea of 5-minute maps a lot more. So the next time we do improvising, I'm going to try to do a 5-minute map in less than 5 minutes using artificial intelligence. Since a lot of you are using ChatGPT and AI to create your stuff, we might as well use it as an improvising tool as well. Okay, I've been very reluctant to do that because I really wanted you to sort of do it from the ground up. But a lot of you are far more experienced than me, or well and truly along that line. You don't need that much help. But let's see. You know, in the future, I will come back to this in about 2.5 months, and we'll see if ChatGPT can actually draw up a map and a short adventure that we need for a set situation. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to end this here, and I'm going to get out of here and get out of this very, very hot room because it's cooking me. It is cooking me. Anyway, I want to say a huge thank you to all of my patrons. Thank you. Without you, this program doesn't continue, and I really need you to continue to support me so that I can keep running this program for people and for you, and keep creating more resources for it. That has always been my intention around this, is to try to get as many resources and tools available that you can use. I want to thank those people who took part in the poll today and have been watching and listening, but particularly those people in the chat. So Fred Huber, thank you for being here. I want to say a huge thank you to Big B's offensive finger, ChatGPT. I totally understand where you come from, Fred, but some people like using it. Big, huge thank you to Nacho Man, who's also a patron. Huge thank you to Pat Sherwood, who's a patron and a moderator. Thank you for being here and supporting me. We also had Derp, who was a patron. And Pale Rider, thank you for being here. Prepare, Cook and Survive, great to have you. And I think that is everybody for today. So wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.